Hello, and welcome back. Dan's smacking the table to start. He's all riled up like Max Verstappen in a post-race interview. Because it's the Lap Down Podcast, and we're back to look over the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which has got a little bit to talk about again. And I'm going to talk about it with Dan Jads, who's sat over there. Dan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well. We had another good Grand Prix. It was, relatively speaking, action-packed, pre-race, during race, post-race. And as you said, there is a lot to have a chat through. On the grid this week, we have lap 1, turn 1, which I think could be a consistent thing throughout the course of the season and every season that's ever happened in Formula 1. We've got lap 1, turn 3 to talk about as well. And then we've got a bit more about lap 1, turn 1, lap 1, turn 3 combined together to talk about. Leclerc said Brian, which is nice. George Russell is still good, but pretty much anonymous. And then some post-race stuff as well, which, we just want to talk about it because it's important. And are the FIA, is MBS, are they killing it? Are they ruining it for us all?
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of lap 1 T something chat. It's the lap 1 T something pod. We had the Posse pod and then we've got the lap 1 T something pod. Oh, look, where do we start on it? You know what, actually? I'll start by saying well done, Oscar Piastri, I think. We'll get to all the minutiae in a minute, but it's another bloody good drive. And he's now leading the World Drivers' Championship. And he's probably... Although Lando did look very fast, but he's probably pulling himself into being a standalone favourite territory if that car stays... If no one catches up or does something silly with a car.
Yeah, I think so. We spoke, didn't we, pre-Saudi, that it was even money between Lando and Oscar. I still don't think there's much in it, to be fair. No doubt the bookies have probably slashed the odds on Oscar Piastri because he's now got like a 12-point lead or something, and they're going to go, no, he's going to be odds-on favourite now. But I just feel like at the moment for these first 5 races, Oscar's just been a little bit more clinical, hasn't he? He's been a little bit calmer, a little bit more calculated, a little bit more assured of himself. And I don't know whether that's because Lando... He's quite an emotional chap, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And in a good way. Yep. He shows his true colours. He speaks to the press. He's quite vocal with what he does off circuit and things like that, which is fantastic. You get an access to him that you don't get from a lot of others. But is that emotion just getting the better of him at the moment? Does he need to be slightly more kind of ruthless, clinical when it comes to those big moments in order to challenge Oscar for this entire season, which he will do? Mm-hmm. But is he going to be good enough to actually beat him over the course of 24 races or not? We don't know. I think we're going to go all the way down to Abu Dhabi, to be completely honest with you.
Abu Dhabi. Yes. I think, and then it gets confusing as well because Max is always going to be in there. You know, and we saw it again this weekend. Max is just always going to be there in one way or another. I don't think George is a realistic chance to actually necessarily fight for anything. But what George is always going to be is that other animal that's just off in the bushes, and he sort of sees the lion take down the gazelle or whatever. But then if that lion gets spooked by something, all of a sudden out comes, George Russell scurrying out of the bushes to mop it all up. I don't think George is a genuine, Drivers' Championship contender this year. But I think he's going to consistently be there as a threat to that they can't ignore him. Because he's just going to keep banging in top 4, top 5 finishes every week. And if there's some scrapping going on out front, George will win a couple of races this year, I think, because he'll probably almost inherit them. Austria, did he? Yeah, he ended up winning at Austria, didn't he? Yeah. Where Lando and Max took each other out. I can see that happening a couple of times, if nothing else, just to make him close enough that they have to pay attention to where he is in the race and where he qualified. Yeah. But yeah, it's bubbling. It's bubbling, this is what the championship should be, by the way, that there are, 4 people that are genuine, well, three and a half, genuine contenders for the championship. And it's going to keep causing problems, like what we saw in Saudi Arabia, turn 1, lap 1, which I think we all saw coming from an absolute mile off.
Yeah, but I don't... because of the nature of that corner, mm-hmm. I don't think there's many other options, to be completely honest with you. I think it's... What he did was deemed wrong by the stewards, and I think correctly deemed wrong as well by the stewards. I don't think he was side by side going into that corner. He took to the runoff area and gained an advantage from doing so. Should he have given the place back on track there? Maybe. Would he have then been closer to Oscar at the end of the Grand Prix? Possibly. Would he have ended up back in the middle of a pack and under pressure from George and Charles, etc.? Maybe as well. We don't really know. But you go flat out for what's quite a long start straight into turn one to an almost, what would it be, a 240-degree left-hander that kind of doubles back on itself. It's not quite a hairpin, is it? But you've got nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily think it's a great corner for the start. Basically, no. It's good for mid-race because they've got 2.5 kilometers of straight with wide open rear wings, and it's all done and dusted by the time you get there. But two cars can't go around there side by side because they're clumsy. They're dozy cars, aren't they? They don't turn very well. And had Max have not taken that route, we'd have had a crash. Mm-hmm. They would have collided because there was no space to the right-hand side of Oscar's car in the white line. So had Max have stayed there and tried to take the corner, crash or cut it.
Yeah.
Can you cut it in a way that makes it look like you haven't gained an advantage? Or had he have kind of tried to hang on the right-hand side of Oscar's, he would have had four tyres off the circuit at that point, so it was still off track. But would that have made it less kind of, he's cut the corner? It's like, no, he tried. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, I think he could have. And I think that's actually a separate conversation, perhaps, that is getting lost in a lot of the noise about this, is that it's not a penalty for leaving the track. It's leaving the track and gaining an advantage, which I think what you touch on there is a very valid point that, okay, say Max goes absolute, 100% wheel lock to the left in that moment and tries to get as much car and as much curb as possible and gets his foot out of the throttle and makes it really apparent. I tried. There was a car there. I stopped us crashing. Yes, I had to use a bit of track that was not the racetrack.
Yeah.
But it's turn one, lap one. I just sort of had to widen the racetrack. And then we sort of went wheel to wheel through turns 3 and 4 or whatever. I think he can probably then get away with that. Or at least there's enough to argue there that they probably chalk it up to one of those, first corner incidents and go, off you go, boys. So I think there is that about it. I think if you just watch it entirely separately, he comes in with so much speed. I don't think he ever has any intention from before the lights go out of making that first corner. I think Max and Oscar have probably both decided during Martin's grid walk that something's going to happen in this first corner. Whoever gets the better start is going to be legally leading out of that first corner, and the other person is going to have to do something naughty because that's just the way it's going to go. The big thing for me is that Max was so much slower off that start, unusually so. It was a very short light as well, which I don't know if they picked up on all the commentaries, but Crofty was surprised at how quickly they were held. And I think Max got done in by that very short light because he was like 0.3 slower reaction time, which when we're so used to seeing that, they are essentially 0.001 reaction time the same because it goes and they're off. That's why he wasn't already ahead. The bloke had 5 meters or whatever the grid box split is jump on him that he lost immediately by not pressing the loud pedal quick enough. So it was always going to happen. It's good that he didn't crash it because I think there are points, or there might be points, or there have been points where a different mooded Max Verstappen, or perhaps with a different driver alongside him, might have just gone, nah, sod it. Let's see whose car's stronger physically.
Pretty much, yeah. Let's see what the stewards decide they want to do. Yeah.
So, and then I think perhaps the other element, it's that lasting advantage thing as well, isn't it? That there was a long time, and there's probably a lot of things at play here. There was a long time before they actually threw the safety car out, which is something that they usually do because there's no threat for the time being because they've got to go 6 miles first, right? So they let them race for quite a while longer. Was that the race director giving Max an opportunity to give the position back under, technically yellow flag, way back, under green racing conditions, before the safety car where he wouldn't be able to give it back? But was that the race director going, you've got 4 miles here, you're only a second ahead for now, lift off, swap them back, and we're good to go? It might not have been, it might have been completely irrelevant, but it was a long time for such an obvious safety car, and I know they like to get him through a couple of sectors and whatever, but I did just wonder, was the race director giving them time to immediately hash that out or not?
Yeah.
But short answer, we'll go really quick version. Did it deserve a penalty, and was a 5-second penalty sufficient?
Yes and yes. Yes and yes. I mean, what do you think about it? Are you a yes and yes on that?
It's definitely a penalty. Technically, it was supposed to be a 10-second penalty as well, and they said in their document that they mitigated that because it was lap 1, turn 1.
Yeah.
Which I agree to mitigate it. I think we almost saw that a 5-second penalty was pointless in that context, because then there's that strategy, and it's the kind of thing I could see Fernando Alonso doing. Because there are some
straight line turn 1. Oh, I've got an 8-second lead on second place.
Guess what?
now.
I'm already
Don't worry
12
about
seconds up the road.
Exactly.
He did it. There was a wet race or something where he, during the warm-up lap, deliberately just went through the runoff to see how quickly he could do the little penalty wiggle they have to do. That's the only thing, is that when we're in a stage where clean air is so important, and we saw that particularly, on the wiggly, the AT1 wiggly turns through that middle section where you can't follow. I'm sure they talked about how easily can we pull a 5-second gap if we need to.
100%.
In a briefing meeting.
He wasn't far away from it, though, was he? That's the thing. Like, they weren't that far away from having 5 seconds.
No. And that's the only thing that I have an issue with. I actually think a 5-second penalty feels about right, but being out in front like that, a middle of the pack 5-second penalty and for the lead of the race 5-second penalty are not the same thing, despite being the same thing. Yeah. So that's my only thing. And then my other question, which is sort of totally, it's not realistic and it's not going to happen, but I'm just going to play a little bit of Saudi Arabian devil's advocate.
Nice.
Put gravel in that outside of turn 1.
Yep.
In Jeddah, and see what happens. Because they've put more gravel in more places this year, and it doesn't need to be a full gravel trap, but they'll put a strip or whatever. If there's gravel there, not a wall would be silly, it's the end of a very fucking long straight. You put some gravel there. Does that happen, or does Max Verstappen lift off, slot in alongside, and then they'll try and race over the next 56 laps?
Yeah, no, I don't think he does. I don't know. The fact that it is just complete tarmac on all of these run-ups, which they do say, in terms of those accidents, they say it's safer, don't they? Because a car has got more chance to gain control back of the car before colliding into a wall, despite the fact that they could then carry more speed into said wall than they would do if there was a gravel trap. But because there isn't really any jeopardy there, it does make it a really nice and easy option just to bail out if things get a little bit too hard. I think with the way that social media and Formula One fans have reacted to it, I think there's a lot of Max tax involved to it. I think it's kind of, it's the worst thing he's ever done. It isn't. The interesting thing, and I would imagine the stewards have the access to that telemetry, but Oscar would have been on full left-hand lock to have got into that. But again, this is the bit that I get stuck on, and whose responsibility is it? They say the way that the Formula One world works, it's kind of, well, it was ahead at the apex, so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's it. Completely black and white. If you've got your front axle ahead at the apex, do whatever the hell you want because you're not going to get penalised. But should that car off the inside made more of an effort, not because it's Max, not for that kind of, Max is going to hang it out there, so I better leave him more space, but there is another human being there. Should I make a conscious effort to at least allow him 2 wheels inside that racing circuit, not just, which we've seen before with several others. We saw Lando at Austria, we've seen Max countless of times, we've seen Lewis do it, that they just go, he cut the track. The track. Well, you didn't give him any room. No, but he cut the track because I was ahead at the apex. Well, yeah, but you gave him, there wasn't a lot of other options, because if that hadn't have happened, fast forward 2 corners, you have a Yuki and a Pierre. You have Oscar and Max come together, they crash, you get a safety car lap 1, turn 1, 2 championship contenders out of the race, and Saudi Arabia Grand Prix looks and feels a lot less exciting than what it does. Had Pierre have just cut turn 3 and allowed Yuki to have gone through, maybe held the advantage, got himself a 5-second penalty, given the place back, we wouldn't have had a crash, we wouldn't have had a safety car, everybody would have carried on, and Yuki and Pierre potentially would have scored points for Red Bull and Alpine, respectively. But they didn't because there wasn't enough space. Pierre tried to stay in the track. Yuki did the classic kind of, oh, well, here we go, and they came together, and then there was a shunt. So that, I think, is the issue with this, with the kind of the wording behind how this is governed. That's a bit where it's like, oh, if your head, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. I have a different take on the Max and Oscar situation with where we lay blame. And it's off the back of, I've sort of formed this as we've talked it out now. Is the person at fault for the Max and Oscar crash the track designer of Jeddah? Because it is simply not possible at the start of a race to have two cars successfully get through there without something controversial. And I think it's actually it's just because the driver on the inside, I don't think there's enough wheel lock to leave enough room. I don't physically think Oscar Piastri can leave enough room there for another Formula One car, because to open that corner up sufficiently to have left room, he needs to be where Max already is on the outside of the track. Because you can't, from the inside line, bend your car back round, 180 degrees on itself to get round that corner and leave room. So, does it need softening? Do we just need to mould that corner slightly so that it's not as harsh? But then, as you said, it's a lovely corner, and it's a great corner for overtaking, and we see a lot of overtaking around that corner at the end of the straight. But not turn 1, because I sort of think no one's at fault, almost. Max was officially at fault, and that is correct, but almost no one was at fault. Yeah. It's just going to always happen, and it will probably happen next year, and it will probably happen the year after that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and Yuki and Pierre, it's just a bit shit happens, isn't it? It's a classic wheel on wheel. Sometimes banging a front wheel on a rear wheel, they bang and they wobble and they carry on. And sometimes you do that and the car in front goes around like that, and sometimes you do it, the car behind goes around like that, and it's just sort of a toss-up as to who comes off worse from that.
Yeah.
It was quite nice to see that both drivers came out afterwards and said, oh, that was a shame. And it wasn't, they weren't doing a Christian Horner and bloody printing out screenshots, grow up. They weren't doing that. They both just kind of went, that sucks, that could have been good points. Racing. Yeah. Lots of cars, small space.
Saudi tax. You know it's going to happen. There's a great chance. Just roll back to Lando in qualifying. You just go, well, that sucks. But
do they have tax in Saudi?
No. I don't know.
It feels like the kind of place where they wouldn't have income tax.
It does actually, doesn't it?
It's got vibes of that.
Yeah,
it's got
maybe
vibes
move
of
that.
Yeah.
Lap Down podcast sponsored by Aramco.
I'll wear a hat if I need to wear a hat.
I'll wear a t-shirt if you want. I'll paint. You know what? I'll paint the back of the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a strong colour scheme, the Aramco. It will be a bold interior design choice.
For the right price, I don't care.
No, very valid. Very valid.
Right, what's next?
That's enough turn stuff, I think, isn't it? I think we're happy that it was clear as mud. I think is actually no, I take it back. It's not enough turn stuff. There's a whole other turn stuff that happened considerably later that no one saw.
Oh God.
Why has Liam Lawson been given a 10-second penalty? For what? I mean, all the controversies on one penalty into that corner. I don't get it. The bloke at the minute is, I mean, why is he so cursed? But also, how have the stewards looked at that and gone, that's a 10-second penalty all day.
Slam dunk.
You. Slam dunk.
Yeah.
I do not have any explanation for it. I've gone back and I've watched it from different onboards, and I'm not 100% convinced he's even off the track. I'm sure he is, and I'm sure the track limits AI or whatever has got an iota of tyre on the blue bit. He's already 10 car lengths past Doohan, and then just outbrakes himself a little bit into that hairpin. Does what I said to you a second ago that Max maybe could have done, of just trying to, makes a real effort.
That's the
to
point.
Make the corner.
Yeah.
he doesn't just storm through. And then he loses a load of time to do it because he did basically stop the car on the outside. I have no explanation for how that can be a penalty. Investigate it, have a look. Fine. I'm happy that you can note that he went wide there. But how they've looked at that and then gone, fuck you, that's a penalty. No idea.
Not really. It didn't feel relevant to the overtake on Doohan, did it?
No.
And I'm not even convinced who would have said, because Doohan must have been so far back that he wouldn't even have seen where Liam's car was at that point anyway. So I don't really know how or what that happened. But yeah,
And
Lawson's got to be wondering what he's done wrong in some former life, isn't he? He must have been
100%.
like a really horrible snail or something, like someone that just ate like MBS's strawberries on his garden patch or something. And this is his this is his reincarnation as a Formula One driver, that he's just being constantly punished for all of his bad acts as a previous snail.
Liam Lawson, a snail. If we've got any listeners that do fan art, can someone please draw me Liam Lawson as a snail eating MBS's strawberries? It's not even an overtaking manoeuvre. And I do wonder whether the fact that he had just pulled off, a maximum bean slipstream DRS, is why he's gone slightly deep, because he was probably going 20 mile an hour faster than he had for the previous, 5-10 laps into that corner. But yeah, that's not on.
No.
And I don't think there can be any debate on that one, weirdly. Like, I think anyone that looks at that surely all comes to the same agreement that it's just not a penalty.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason why you also animated it might have cost you a lap down World Championship Formula One wheel spin point as well.
And it's bloody tight.
Potentially.
It's bloody tight.
2 points in it.
Should we do points? Should we do results before we then go and do sort of post-race chats?
Do you know, I think that's quite nice. I think the way that we've rolled from Lawson into points there, I think works quite well. But, I mean, with Oliver Bearman and Liam Lawson, you didn't stand a great chance, did you?
No, particularly after quali.
Points. Do you know what the funny thing is as well? This is your second 0-point weekend of the season so far in 5 races. Between the two of us, this is the third consecutive 0-point race weekends after I had Alonso and Hülkenberg the week before, and you had the 2 Frenchies the week before that in Japan. But with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, despite the fact that Lando cocked his qualifying up and cost me a few points, I did pick up 30 points, which is helpful because the standings after 5 rounds is AB 67, Dan 65. There's 2 points in it after 5 rounds of the complete random mystery wheel spin spreadsheet Formula One lapdown podcast worldchampionship.com.
Who do you reckon the bookies have got at this point? We need a contact.
You'll probably be odds on favourite. You'll be 7 to 10 on.
Oh.
I'm probably 183,000 to 1. I'm even money.
It's very close, isn't it?
Yeah,
Genuinely keeping itself quite close,
it is exciting.
Which is what you want to see. I'm going to be honest. I had given up on this weekend to the point that I had to ask you before this who my second driver was because I'd forgotten.
Yeah, poor old
because
Oliver Bearman.
It wasn't worth looking for them. Very quickly, actually, before we do post stuff, and this is probably going to keep being a theme until something gets locked in either way.
Yeah.
We had talked recently that actually Jackie Doos had maybe stepped his game up a little bit. And then this weekend, he seemed to have undone all of that good work because he was a long way off Pierre Gasly through quali. I mean, he was going to have qualified a good 7 or 8 positions below him. Who's that coming over the hill? It's Colapinto. That feels like that's gone a little quiet recently, and I don't know if that's scarier for Jack Doohan or not. When there's a lot of noise, that can mean one of two things, and sometimes when it all goes a bit quiet, that can maybe also mean one of two things.
Yeah.
Is Doohan's chances of surviving getting better or worse? Because I feel like he's probably not doing enough to instill a huge amount of confidence.
I think there's going to be a little bit of a power struggle with Colapinto, you know, because I don't think we're over Colapinto to Red Bull this year. Genuinely, I don't, because I mean, how many points has Yuki got for Red Bull? I know he's got 5 in the championship, but how many of those came from the Racing Bulls? I know they're transferable. I mean, currency exchange rates between Red Bull and Racing Bulls is 1-to-1, so it doesn't really matter. But I think it might be 4 to or 3-2 or 4-1 in favour of the Racing Bulls. He's got 1 point, put it in a wall in 3 races. He's outscored Liam Lawson by 1 or 2 points over the course of having one extra race. I just don't think we're out of the woods yet for this Colapinto power struggle. So I think Colapinto's agent is, I think, to use the technical term, keeping his mate dry and just checking and seeing if there is any Red Bull replacements for some herbal tea instead, right before he goes off and gets very depressed driving for a French team that clearly don't have a great deal of ambition about anything. So I don't think we're done.
Interesting, because Helmut seems to be quite positive about Yuki all of a sudden, and he's saying nice things about him, which generally, if Helmut's saying that,
old bastard, isn't he? Like,
you're in a good spot.
He'll have forgotten by that next week. He'll probably be making some form of like Japanese racial slur towards him, and it'll be, there we go. We'll be back to the Colapinto story.
There it is.
I've always liked those young Argentinian boys. That'll be what he says.
God. Right. Let's finish off our podcast race weekend in the same way that the drivers do, with a little bit of media work, because quite interesting contrasts post Grand Prix in the interviews and how much was said in the interviews and what was said in the interviews. Max has sort of thrown his toys quietly out of the pram a little bit.
Driver of the day, Max, as well, just to let you know.
Yeah, I'm not going to open that can of worms again. I've been called enough names on the internet already. I don't know why Lewis didn't win driver of the day this weekend, but it's getting a bit uncomfortable, the drivers in the media and what they are and aren't allowed to say. I think Max is deliberately making that more awkward and leading the charge on that a little bit. But it's not a great look for anyone, I don't think, when you've got drivers feeling like, and not even feel like, quite actively saying they're not comfortable discussing things because they feel like they're at risk if they're in any way critical. Yes, you've got to just respect the referee's decision, and in all sports, you're not really allowed to come out and, managers come out in football and say, "Fuck, was that ref on? That was never a penalty," and they get fined for it. Okay, that's fine, But if you're walking out of an interview after 14 seconds or whatever it is after finishing second in a race, it's not David Coulthard's fault. Like he's just there with a microphone. Not great. Doesn't look great.
No, there was I think the clip that I saw was actually in the press room afterwards as well, and again it was. And this is the battle, isn't it? Because they've essentially all been given gagging orders. Yep. Max feels like he's been gagged slightly harder than the other 19 of them, and I think has reacted as you'd expect Max to react. Just doesn't particularly want to play ball, which is completely fine. He's an adult and he can do what he wants. But the job of a journo is to press for an answer. So the journo asks Max and goes, "Oh, can we talk about the race, the lap 1 turn 1?" He goes, "Oh, I'm not allowed to."
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh, well, okay. Well, we won't talk about that. Can we talk about the racing?" And he just goes, "What happened so fast?" And But the thing is there's no value being added to anybody there at all. I mean, I don't know how many Formula One fans would have hung around at the end of the Grand Prix generally to watch kind of post-race conferences, or whether they would have just picked them up across social media clips or something, but they would have provided value at some point. And I don't necessarily think Max is the type of guy to go, "Well, Oscar's a shit cunt and he drove me off the fucking track and he's a fucking prick, and if we hadn't have done this, we'd have fucking crashed, and it's the FIA's fault because they're fucking cheating pricks," and all this. I don't think he's that type of bloke to go that far. But I don't necessarily think it's particularly helpful to anybody if you don't give them the opportunity to speak, because they don't get an opportunity to speak about it. That's the other thing. I know they'll have the conversations between their radio and their race engineers, but again, that's whilst trying to drive 200 mile an hour around 90-degree bends for an hour and a half, and you come out looking like you've been in a boxing match like Lando Norris did. Yeah. It's hard. You don't get that opportunity to do that. So essentially put them all under a gagging order, but only a gagging order if things don't go the way you want them to. If they go the way you can, just talk about whatever you want, be happy and be cheery. But actually, we don't want any negativity about this at all. And that's, I think, quite tough. And yeah, I, for one, I looked at it and I went, this just feels sad now. Yeah. And I don't think I'll bother trying to consume this content again.
It also...
Not talking about the podcast.
Most people do. It's almost as if they want Max to leave. And I know this affects all the drivers and not Max, but it's not specifically targeted at Max, but it does seem to hit Max harder.
Yep.
Do you want him to take a sabbatical next year? Because that's the latest rumor, is that Max isn't going to bother with 26 because he can't be fucked with it. So he's going to sit, go put his feet up, see which team gets it right, and then go sign with that team. Which it's not a bad strategy, to be honest, when he's got a baby on the way as well. That go and see who's got the quickest car. Guarantee you they'll welcome you into that team and do what you want. But yeah, Max has always been quite a I just want to race sort of guy. Has never necessarily loved his media work, and you're only making it more painful for him. It's not the journalist's fault. I heard that Penn interview that you were on as well, and I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Natalie Pinkham or someone from Sky anyway. And they asked the same question 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different ways because they were trying to find the angle on that Max would be happy to speak to. But then your other problem is all of social and all of the online outlets are looking for a sentence that they can take out of context. Max Verstappen slams baby's face into a wall, and they'll skew that. So I don't blame any of the drivers for not talking about it because they know exactly what's going to happen, and the PR training that they've got, kicks in, and they get to there. And it's the same with Lando. There's so much forced hate onto Lando Norris because people take a 1-sentence soundbite out of the 50,000 sentences that he's provided over that weekend. They form their entire personality based on that one opinion, and then they reinforce it to themselves that none of them can win unless you're Oscar Piastri and you just provide the most vanilla ice cream content at all times. But
delicious though.
Oh, absolutely. Wrap your tongue around it. If we're going to play this game, scrap the interviews. We sort of, as you said, they're doing no value to anyone. If drivers don't feel like they can talk and don't really want to talk, let's not even bother asking them the questions. It's going to save everyone a load of effort and they can go home early. Or, okay, you know what? I've actually softened on the whole swearing thing now that they've softened on the swearing thing, that it's just sort of about controlled situations. Sweet. Makes everyone's life easier if you don't swear in the press pit.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Max is still entitled to, and no, that's not fair. Any driver is still entitled to their view on an incident, provided that they convey that in a polite and appropriate way. If they do an interview where they say, who the fuck was the steward this weekend? What were they smoking? That's an absolute disgrace. It's like they've never, watched a race in their life. Okay, you probably can't say that, but that's also true of all jobs. That's not a... That's not a general government thing.
Is it, to Formula One?
You can't come out and openly criticise your own chief executive, on the company's Twitter. But if drivers aren't allowed to have an opinion, don't ask them for their opinion.
Precisely. And the thing is had Max have sat there and said, okay, lap 1, turn 1, what do you think about it? Okay, well, obviously it's the start of the race. I want to win the race. I'm trying to get around there. I tried to make the corner. I felt like Oscar didn't give me space.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which is his objective account of events. And then Christian Horner prints it out in his little bits of paper and tries to show off that it's the same thing.
Hopefully use the right PDF.
Yeah. He is entitled to that opinion, provided he doesn't then go, comma, and the stewards are idiots and they've got that wrong.
Precisely.
And he should even still be allowed to go, you know what, no, I don't agree that's a penalty. I can see why they've got to it, but he can soften that if he wants to. He can let his media training kick in and he can try and provide the other argument, but he should be entitled to have an opinion if we're going to ask for his opinion. In the same way, if you're going to be on the grid, you should have to speak to Martin during his grid walk. Usher, I'm talking about you. Go and fuck yourself. If we're going to ask someone for an opinion, they have to
Diddy Party Boys.
Oh, probably at this point. Yeah. They all are. MBS is
Wasn't
probably
he the
there.
one that hand delivered Justin Bieber to Diddy or something, or was that something else? That
I like hand delivered as if he was carrying him into the room.
No, I think he kind of was quite close to that, to be fair, by all accounts. But yeah, odd.
But yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Just don't ask an opinion if you don't want an opinion. I will say, to be honest, apart from his stupid little printout thing, the press that I saw from Christian Horner was probably better. And it is Christian's job, in fairness, and maybe Max has gone, you can speak to my boss about that, that's nothing to do with me, but there was an interview that Christian did with Karun Chandok, just like a little pit lane walk, and it was quite a level-headed take of, we don't agree, we think Max didn't have room and didn't get this. Well done, Oscar, great drive, he put that on the end, great.
Yep.
And yeah, it's all bollocks, as is most of this podcast. But
pretty much all 35 minutes of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think we're aligned on it that it's let them race, let them speak with some small guidelines in place.
Yeah, if you overstep the line, get punished.
Yeah.
But don't create an atmosphere where... I think the thing is Max would quite happily just not turn up to any of this.
Yes.
And ultimately, probably would have been as productive had he have not turned up to any of it, but would have been fine that way around as well.
Yeah.
So you end up with this horrible, awkward, nobody likes anybody conversation that doesn't help or benefit anybody in the slightest. But then they've created that. They've created that space, and yes, maybe one driver has taken it a bit personally compared to others, but he's got every right to be able to do that, and it's silly.
But we've also seen as well, it's not like Max refuses to do media, doesn't like speaking to the media. There was last year when they sort of really put the brakes on with doing press and stuff. And Verstappen when hosted his own sort of closed doors press conference in their own motorhome, and they chose to do that. They weren't obligated to do that. They were quite happy to talk just in their own controlled environment. So it's not even as if he's trying to skirt doing all media duties. I'm sure he doesn't love it, but they have offered that before. And you're just going to start getting more of that, or you're just going to start getting them not saying anything to the general press and having their one journo that they actually like, and they'll give all their interviews to them, and it goes from there. Also, do we need that? Do we need the pit interviews? Like, they all say the same thing over and over again every race. We don't really get anything out of it. Do we all need them to stand in this little corral area? Like, who's that for? Who's going and watching that?
I have no idea. No idea. Don't know. But there we go.
There we go.
Done.
There, we made it through the triple header. Well done, everyone. We got through. We got
Saudi
there.
wrapped.
Wrap it up. Right, Dan, where can they find you on the internet if they'd like to go and watch you over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, if you want to hang out, just have a little search for Dan Jads on any of those internet platforms, I suppose, and you'll find...
platforms,
well, not any of them, but the clean ones anyway.
Pick your pipe. Pick your pipe. Pick your pipe.
Pick your pipe.
Twitch.tv/Hey Look It's Alex. Although, next week there won't be a huge amount of that because I'm going away, so there will not be a midweek pod next week. We will be back with a Miami preview pod next Thursday/Friday as we look to that. But there's a couple of weeks off of racing. There's a normal-sized gap of racing, which feels like a couple of weeks off. It's just what the gap should be. But we've got that off, so we will be back, in next Thursday. In the meantime, lapdownpod@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts, you can email us there. Lapdownpod on all of your other socials as well. There's clips and stuff on there. You can leave comments or messages or all the rest of it. Share it with a friend. Leave us a review. Say hi to your mum for me.